Hello and welcome to another Eurogamer Next-Gen Newscast. I'm Wesley Ian Paul, Deputy Editor of Eurogamer, and I'm joined once again by Eurogamer reporter Emma Kent. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
And Eurogamer News Editor Tom Phillips. Hello, Tom.
Hello there.
It's the 12th of November, and that means that the Xbox Series X and S and the PlayStation 5 are all out, although the PS5 isn't out in the UK yet. That's next week, but the consoles are live, and we're starting to see people do stuff with them, and we will get to that later, because some of the stuff they've been doing with them has
Doing
been
horrible things, unspeakable things.
Just plain dangerous things.
Just stupid,
Yeah.
stupid, silly internet things. But first, before we get onto all of that, as is customary for the Eurogamer Next-Gen Newscast, we will ask what we've been playing. Actually, I'm distracted by your T-shirt, Tom. What is that on your? Is that a video game T-shirt?
It is, yeah. It's I don't know where it's from. I've had it a while, but it's a cross
Etsy,
between Portal and I think it's Etsy, yeah. A cross between Portal and BioShock Infinite.
Oh right.
One game wasn't enough. You needed two things to be like nerdy enough.
Yeah.
What BioShock? So I get the Portal is from Portal, but I've played BioShock Infinite. I don't recognise the thing.
So that's
falling
Booker
out.
and Elizabeth going through. So a lot of the promotional art had them falling through the sky, obviously in Colombia. And originally Colombia was going to be a lot more vertical before they had to sort of rejig it at the end of the project. But yes, so it's them falling through the sky, but also falling through the Portal.
You big nerd. Okay, Emma, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is extremely strange for me because I've normally steered very far clear of Assassin's Creed. I don't know. I tried a little bit when I was younger and it didn't click with me. It was someone else's game. And then since then, I left it alone. But it just looked so pretty. And it's one of the kind of few really exciting titles coming out at the moment that you can play on like your Xbox. So I was like, yeah, and you know what? I'm going to give it a go so far. And yeah, I like it. I
What
think
are you
it's
playing it on?
The Series S. So yeah, it looks all nice and shiny, nice and snowy. Everyone's taking lots of photos. I'm sure my gallery will also fill up soon. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying exploring. I haven't like the action and like the actual kind of fighting mechanics haven't quite clicked with me yet. I don't know. I think it's because the kind of red attacks remind me of like Sekiro, and then my brain is like expecting that kind of speed, which it doesn't quite have. It's like a hefty axe, like you got to know what you're doing and plan ahead, rather than try and react and run away, which is normally my strategy.
Are you saying you're too good at combat in games to play?
I know. I'm just like shot.
It feels like that's what you're trying to say. You're struggling because it's crap.
Have you tried any other?
It's not hard enough, guys. Come on.
Not the axe.
I have. Yeah. Well, I did figure out that if I just stand really far away with a bow, it's much easier than getting overwhelmed, or just running through areas and just doing the actual kind of points that you're supposed to do for quests and stuff. But yeah, I'm sure I will improve over time and get used to it. But the world is amazing, and just sailing around in a boat and listening to music is pretty nice, pretty chill. I like how you could just press a button and then it will kind of navigate for you, like a little car ride. Just listen to music.
Hand holding in games, huh? Tom, I know the answer to this, but what have you been playing?
Well, yes, a lot of Valhalla. I really crammed in a lot of that game ahead of the review embargo, which was Monday, and actually now I've taken a little break from it because I've played so much that I think I don't want to rush it, and like what I mean by that is there's just so much more like extra little things to go find in the world, which I really want to go do, but I don't want to gorge myself too much on that So I've taken a little break. I did play a bit last night, going back into the Mythworld bits, which is so pretty. But I've also been playing Tetris Effect Connected, which is basically the other new thing to play on Xbox at the moment. Everyone's buying these £400 consoles and then they're playing Tetris on them. But it's, it's an incredible version of Tetris. We've been spoilt recently with all the different types of Tetris coming out. Tetris Effect, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Tetris 99. But like Tetris Effect is really a one-off. It is Tetris, but it's also basically like just a really relaxing acid trip of a game to chill out to late in the evening. I just find myself logging on to go through a couple of stages, and yes, it's very, very nice, and it looks great on Series X as well, which is cool. And obviously, it's the first time it's been available on an Xbox. It was PlayStation 4 exclusive before now.
Yeah, and it was on PC. But what's exclusive? What Microsoft has the exclusive on is the multiplayer, which is the connected part of the new version. And although that's on PC as well, with crossplay, which is pretty cool. And I've been playing Tetris Effect Connected quite a lot since
this doesn't
Tuesday.
surprise me.
It's so good.
Yeah, I know I've been smashing the PvP, and holy cow! You know how like single player is like this like otherworld experience, and it's like really wholesome Tetris-y weirdness. Well, I'm out to kill in Tetris PvP. All of that, it's all connected. That fancy stuff, that song with all the lovely lyrics about everyone come together.
All out
Screw that. I'm killing you in this game. I'm killing you. And PvP Tetris is a sweat fest. Like the people like T-spinning like every 5 seconds. I don't know where these people come from, but they were like, this is hardcore stuff. And
so, okay, let me get this straight. First, you complained that Hades is too tough, and now you're saying that Tetris is too tough.
Well, Tetris people are
like
too
you've
tough
had
at
enough
Tetris.
time to get good at Tetris by now, Wes. Come on, like it's been
Yeah,
out
you've
a
had
while.
30 years.
Oh, see, I am good at Tetris, but the problem when you play any game multiplayer and it opens up to the rest of the world is there's always someone better, and I'm struggling to cope with that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So
I recently did a preview event for Apex Legends, and it was similar vibes where I was like, yeah, no, I play Apex every week. I'll be great. And it was full of streamers and QA devs, and I just got absolutely battered, just completely humiliated. And I'm like, okay, I'm not that good. I take it all back.
Yeah. You see, events need matchmaking, like skill-based matchmaking.
This is why I stick to Assassin's Creed, single player.
Well, I was going to say we should play Tetris Effect against each other at some point, but maybe we should just play co-op. Probably better for you. Anyway, let's talk about the news. And there's a huge amount of news that's been in the last week as people have, like I said, started to get their hands on the new consoles. And I wanted to start with one of the funniest, is the word funny? It's kind of sad as well, I think. But it definitely made me laugh. Stories, next-gen stories so far, which is yours, Emma, about smoke.
People putting vape smoke into their Xboxes. Yeah.
Right, let's start at the beginning. So how did this all start?
How did we get here?
How did we get here? Yeah.
God. Well, I think the first I saw that video posted very early in the morning that day when that happened, and I was like, oh, that's stupid. That's obviously fake. No one's going to believe that. Like, I don't know how they've done it, but that smoke coming out of this Xbox and claiming that, oh, the Xbox is broken. I was like, yeah, okay. That won't, no one's going to believe that. Fast forward a few hours and it's all over social media, like multiple subreddits. It's on Twitter being like circulated around. People are starting to write news articles about it without actually challenging it, which wasn't brilliant in some cases. And yeah, no, it was bad. I think there were like 2 videos that did that. And basically what we think people did is just get a vape and put it at the base of the Xbox Series X and then power off the X and then do the kind of smoke thing and cycle it through just as it was kind of powering off. So it looked like it had actually kind of exploded inside and was like smoking, and it turned off. And yeah, obviously a lot of people fell for it, and we had to actually come out and debunk it along with some other people. Someone actually demoed it and sacrificed their Series X, I guess, for the sake of truth.
That is hardcore.
I know, right?
Commitment to the truth right there. I'm not sure I'd have done that.
So yeah, at that point we were like, okay, obviously this is how they're doing it. And Microsoft had to say A, that they were investigating it, and then B, they came out and said on the Xbox account, like, please don't vape into your Xbox. We can't believe we have to say this. Really stupid.
Yeah, fun times. You get these stories when new consoles launch because people do silly things with them, and you can never account for people. There's just people do crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think we often forget as well that not everyone who's buying an Xbox is particularly tech savvy and will be able to be like, oh yeah, that's definitely fake. Like an Xbox wouldn't be able to produce that much smoke, because a lot of people were saying that. How could it be fake? But a lot of people were fooled by it. Yeah,
so a lot of people were fooled by it. Yeah, like I've seen some tweet video. I've seen the original tweet videos, like millions of views, where the smoke is just coming out the top of it, in front of the telly, and Microsoft went. I mean, it sounds silly and it's fun, and their tweet was like, "Lol, don't do this." But they won't be happy that that's had so many millions of views. Like that is not a good thing for them ultimately, because they'll bet they get people who are sort of like contacting them even now, saying, should I be worried? Is this a problem?
Yeah, I mean, they still have people trying to say that the Xbox has problems with overheating, which was the original kind of round of rumors that came out just before, obviously, we had the first reviews for the Xbox Series X. And I think basically what happened there was a couple of people said it was a bit toasty or something, and then the internet ran wild with it, and the people who had the Xbox Series X under embargo couldn't refute it, and they had to wait. And obviously it spent several days just kind of spinning and no one was challenging it. And now we have a kind of point where I think these smoking videos possibly were kind of encouraged by that earlier rumor mill. And it's really unfortunate that happened, and I really feel for Xbox's PR department just having to deal with that yesterday. Where do you start?
I mean, their tweet was quite good, I think.
Yeah.
It is worth remembering that you will always get some models that break or bust. Like every single consumer electronics device that is launched at scale like this, there is always factored in a percentage of units that are faulty. It's just the way it has to be. And so there will be reports online of people whose PlayStation 5s and Xboxes will just brick themselves for no reason. In fact, I saw the Mirror reported on a guy in Hull whose Xbox just bricked itself. But we have to be, what I think is important for us to do is to obviously debunk these things when they're fake, like is obvious with the vaping thing, but also be smart about it and go and try and think about whether these things are actually, evidence of a trend, like whether they're widespread issues or if they're just like what you kind of would expect in terms of a console launch. It can be tricky sometimes to know the difference, actually, because you can see like 100 people might report that their PS5s are not working, and you go, oh god, 100 people, there must be a problem with it. But actually, what percentage of that is the number of consoles that have been sold? Millions. So I think it is worth remembering that things do break. It's just the way it is. Tom, has your Xbox Series X started signaling the new Pope yet?
No, unfortunately. I could make some money on that if it did. I had a text yesterday off a friend of mine, a non-gaming friend, but I think that's all the more interesting that it was someone not particularly plugged into video games who had seen one of these videos that we're talking about of an Xbox smoking away, and they sent it to me saying, "Is this legitimate?" And I think it goes back to what you're saying. It is kind of funny, but it is also, when it gets to that kind of like, that is the discourse, that is the video going round, and we live in 2020, a year where, well, the several years where
what is
facts
real
don't matter.
What is real?
And if that's sort of the meme and the main thing going around about your console on launch day, it's not a positive thing. And if that's the impression you're giving out to people who are potential customers down the line, then it's not great. And no one obviously fact checks these things when they're just being passed around WhatsApp. So I said, no, this isn't real. And here's a link to our story. But it's just really interesting that it's
a new reader. Yes, good job, Tom.
Yeah, point for me. But it's just really interesting that these things do spread so easily without any verification, and it's very easy to do. And it does seem like these things sprung into being because of the earlier my Xbox is hot things. So it just underlines how important like accuracy in reporting has to be, because from that one little thing, the ripples grow, and then you're seeing like people blow vape into Xboxes, and it's just frankly depressing.
What are they going to blow into it next?
Yeah. Well, the other thing yesterday was the ping pong balls.
Oh yeah. Someone.
Yeah, which was fake as well.
Yeah. Oh god.
Kind of sad that one's fake though. You just want to have a ping pong ball like floating around.
I can't believe, like, you have to have such a misunderstanding of physics to think that was real.
I'm like a turbine coming out of the top of the bloody console.
I bet the PS4, my old PS4, which sounds like a helicarrier, that would definitely float a ping pong.
I mean, we'd float
a football.
Yeah, we'd float on mine. Yeah, I expect there's going to be more of these kind of videos where people are blowing smoke through their Xboxes. Yeah, all sorts of smoke, I imagine, will be tested.
I mean, just
maybe this
one.
Snoop's definitely. I mean, he's already.
He's doing it right now.
Yeah, maybe that could be another Digital Foundry face-off. How well the Xbox copes with different types of smoke.
Talk about high definition.
Speaking of Xboxes, you wrote a story today, Tom, about the launch of the Xbox Series X and S, and Phil Spencer saying it's the biggest launch of an Xbox ever. And as you pointed out, which I think is important to say, he's not mentioning sales. But my question to you is, does this indicate, what does this tell us at this early stage, what he said? Can we take anything, meaningful from it? Or is he just blowing smoke up our asses?
A little bit of that. And I think that's his job as the boss of a company that just launched an incredibly, it has to be said, successful commercial product in the middle of a pandemic. It's his job to come out and say, look at this thing that we did, and we just shipped over 1 million consoles. Although he doesn't say that, but you can ascertain that from comparisons back to when they did talk about sales figures. I mean, this is the conversation that we sort of have when we look at these kind of press releases and think, is there anything meaningful here? He's coming out and saying, we did really well, guys. And no, on the face of it, that isn't really that newsworthy. Of course, he's going to say that. He's the boss of Microsoft, and that's what you'd expect him to say. But there are a couple of things in it that are interesting. He does point out that they launched in the widest number of countries that they've ever launched in. And I think that does contribute to the fact that they've been able to sell more Xboxes at launch this time. And in the middle of a pandemic, that's, well done to them for pulling that off. And it says that it has sold, and the strategy that they have put in place, which is 2 Xboxes, and I think launching ahead of PlayStation and at a very competitive price when you're talking about the Xbox Series S, has been very successful. And I think that underneath the sort of the PR bluster, it's been a good positive launch for Xbox, and the sales numbers, they don't really talk about them. They've not talked about them for a long time. Microsoft has said that that's because they're more interested in the number of users they have on their platform engaged. I mean,
they would be talking about them if they were willing. Come on.
Well, and that's something in our story. Phil Spencer yesterday in an interview with The Guardian with Kes McDonald said actually we wouldn't, because we're in the place now where we're competing with Facebook, Stadia, other people who are coming into the streaming gaming platform, and they don't talk about, like, Facebook doesn't talk about the number of devices connected to Facebook. Facebook talks about the number of users on its platform, and Xbox sees itself as a competitor to that. I mean, as I said, also, they are not the leaders in the console market space at the moment, but they have said that if they ever were again, then their policies wouldn't change. I think it's a fair statement to make. I don't think they're deliberately obfuscating the numbers that they are involved in when they are pushing into markets that PlayStation does not have a foothold in. You can't play PlayStation games on Android phones, and PlayStation doesn't publish first-party titles on Nintendo Switch. So, you know, you have to give that to him.
Does this mean that, do you get the sense that we can take anything from this in terms of trying to work out who's winning this time around? Or is it too early days?
It's very early days when the PlayStation 5 is yet to launch in this country.
Is it going to be tighter? Because come on, like, Sony smashed Microsoft last gen. Okay, like there was, it's not even close. It's not even close. Do we feel like a bit more positive about it being a tighter race this time in terms of sales? I know Phil Spencer doesn't want to talk about sales, but you know, they are a good comparison figure. Do we feel like things are going to be tighter this time around?
I think in the long term, yes. And maybe in the short and in the short term, you know, the sales really don't matter a huge amount, which is something, again, that Phil said in the Guardian interview. He pointed out, which is absolutely accurate, that launch sales only indicate the number of consoles that you can put into the marketplace to sell on launch day, and then they're sold out. And the number that you will sell on launch day is entirely limited to the number that you can manufacture, ship, and put into the commercial chain. That's all it is. The real test goes beyond day one. And I do think that there will be a closer race this time around. I think that most people would say that just because Xbox hasn't completely failed its launch like it did last time around with Connect, a higher price point, and just some really weird messaging around like DRM and things like that. Xbox is definitely not in that position. It's got the S this time around, which is a really competitive price. It's got Game Pass. You know, obviously it doesn't have first-party games at launch in the way that PlayStation has. And PS5 is an enormous install base that then push over to PS5. So I think, you know, we're not talking about Xbox suddenly leapfrogging Sony into the lead, but I think it'll be tighter. And I think most people would agree that.
Emma, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think, PlayStation 5 is probably going to have a more successful launch. As we said previously, I think Xbox is going to come through a little bit later on. We've got to wait a while for the kind of launch title games to come through. And I think Xbox is thinking of a longer game and, trying to swap to that subscription kind of model. And I think they're just trying to not position themselves as in direct competition, with Sony anymore, because they see themselves as doing something different.
Yeah, they can try that. I'm going to still do it. You know what sold out at launch, Tom? The Wii U.
Vapes.
The Wii U. And look what happened to that.
Well, this just proves my point that when you're talking about console launches, the only number that really comes out of that is the number that you put into the console market. And not only does that involve like, okay, we're going to manufacture X number of boxes and say that they were sold out, and that's great. But you could also do the opposite and not manufacture very many boxes and still say that it's sold out. So, and I think that's probably more the case with the Wii U situation. I remember that being fairly stock limited. Yeah.
I mean, I'm willing to cut these companies a lot of slack in the pandemic, right? I mean, it's different. It's just naturally different. My take, I think PS5 wins all day long over the course of the gen, but I think it'll be a little tighter, and I think that's good. Emma, one of my favorite articles that we've run on the site this week was your piece about launching a games console in 2020 and what that looks like. And you went to your local game store to find out what actually was happening, which I thought was fantastic. The article is on the site now, with some cracking pictures as well of the front of a game shop. Tell me about your experience doing that. When you arrived at the store, which is in a shopping centre, right? So I wasn't even sure you were going to be able to get into the shopping centre in Brighton to be able to see Game in the first place. So how did it all work out?
Well, it felt like venturing out into the unknown, to be honest, because I had no idea what was going to be waiting for me. And like even on the way there were like police cars going around with like megaphones being like, "Go home if you're not doing anything useful." And I was like, ooh. Snooping around, going for
real life watchdogs as you try and get watchdogs.
I know. Oh yeah. What's reality anymore? Are we in watchdogs? You know. So yeah, I made it to the shopping centre and it's completely deserted because no one's going in there. Everything's shut. There's just one security guard, obviously just waiting to check if people are like actually going in there for legit reasons, and came up being like very politely like, "Oh, can I help you? What are you looking for?" But like clearly checking I wasn't just messing around, and I was like, "Oh."
What did you say?
Game. I was like, "Oh, I'm looking for game click and collect," which felt really weird. It's just like, oh yeah, what an essential service I have to go into the shopping centre. But obviously it's fine. And he was like, yeah, go on through. And I was like, oh, phew, I made it. And yeah, it was just completely weird and empty. There were like 2 other people in the whole shopping centre just walking around. And Game by that point was completely deserted as well, apart from the staff members. I think they had more people early in the day. I spoke to someone who went there at like the 8:30 a.m. launch, which I couldn't make because I have to walk for ages to get there. And yeah, apparently there were people at that point queuing up and they had them like socially distanced and they were having a chat about games and excited and things. Obviously not the midnight launches we would have seen in previous years, but something. So at least people got that. But when I was there, absolutely no one. There was like one console in the middle aisle that was all like wrapped up and had forms on it. And I was like, hello, there's one there. But yeah, they had like hand sanitizer and like the employees had masks on, and it just felt very, very weird. You couldn't buy anything else in the shop as well because it was closed other than for click and collect. So I think they did everything they could within reason to make it safe.
Right. So what happened when you actually spoke to someone on staff and told them what you were doing?
Well, at first they're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, well, we've only got one left now. But yeah, no, they couldn't really say anything because they've been told they can talk to press. So I was just kind of like, oh, so these are health and safety measures, and they were like, oh, we've got to answer, but we can't. I was like, okay, I'll just write these observations down, I guess, and go and ask someone else who was here earlier about it. So
yeah, I got a lot of time for people who work at Game. I used to work at Game in another life, and I know what it's like to launch a console under normal circumstances. It's incredibly stressful and tiring, but to do it in a pandemic where you're worried about coming into contact with members of the public and catching things from that have been touched by other people must be incredibly worrying.
Yeah.
And
saying, yeah, they were just kind of handing them out over, so no one was actually even going into the shop. Like they were just kind of, they had barriers up and they're just handing the consoles over once you'd shown your proof of purchase. So at least hopefully the staff got a little bit of distance apart from handing over, I guess.
Yeah, I've got a few contacts at Game and I've been talking to them about how it's working, and there are a lot of staff on furlough at the moment. So obviously it's a very anxious time for people. The high street, we all know, has been completely torn to shreds over coronavirus, and I think there is genuine concern that shops aren't long for this world. But some people I've spoken to have said that the launch of the consoles is going to be a shot in the arm for the business. If there's one argument for game shops still being around, it's a console launch. It's kind of like almost the last argument, really. So then there's like other issues that I've heard about regarding game staff having to work to get their full pay all week long rather than just the days they're open, because they're only doing this they only did the click and collect on the day of the launch, and they're doing it again for next week for the PS5, but they're having to just sort of like twiddle their thumbs being in the shop the whole time, which isn't great. So there's a lot of weirdness that's being worked out there, but I do I do credit them with doing the best with what they've got. And the pictures you took, I love them. It's just so surreal, isn't it?
It is. It's weird. It was like going into I don't know, a zombie film. I don't know, or game. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Which
Get
which
to do
game
it
is
all
it
over
that's got
again.
like you can kill zombies in a mall with a golf
Dead
club?
Rising.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like that. I was half expecting that to start any moment.
Yeah. Well, next week they'll be doing it all over again for the launch of the PS5. I wonder if I assume it'll work the same, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about is some of the stuff that we've learned about the PS5 now that's out, and also in the few days before it came out, because Sony put out this big FAQ answering some questions that told us a few things that we didn't know about the PS5 that I think are worth looking at. And there's also been a recent interview with some of the architects of the PS5 in Japan, a Japanese interview that's been translated. We've got stories on the site about what they've said there that have addressed some of the more controversial aspects of this console. Now, the first one I want to talk about is what I think is just a remarkable situation. Sony, for some reason, has decided that you can't get PS5 games off the PS5. They're locked to the SSD. And they've said in an interview this week that they're looking at ways to let people store PS5 games on a USB drive in the future update. But at launch, the PS5 won't let you get them off the SSD, which means that when it's full, you're going to have to delete and then if you want it again, re-download. Like in 2020, this is how this console is launched. And I don't know if I'm overreacting, but does that sound like, Tom, is it, the Xbox doesn't do this?
No, it doesn't.
Am I just being crazy and thinking this is nuts? Or is this just, what is happening?
I think that, I can't think that Sony considered this feature and just thought, nah, we won't bother with that, and then have now changed their mind. It sounds like something that you would always want available on your console and just wasn't a priority to hit launch day, or they just couldn't do it for launch day, and it will arrive at some time further down the line. And I think that ties into the fact that SSDs are not yet supported by PlayStation 5. They've said that they will be in the future, but just not yet. It's a real shame they're not. I've actually spent a lot of time this week organizing my game collection on Xbox. I've brought over loads of things from Xbox One. They're all on like my hard drive now, my portable hard drive, but the ones that I really want to play are now on my SSD to play on Series X. Everything just works. You can plug in external. I've got an external SSD. I've been shuttling games back and forth. Easy peasy. It's just, I don't need to be doing that. I'm a bit OCD and I like everything set up the right way. And I completely understand that other people want to do this too. And there will be people who max out their 700 gig available memory space on a PS5.
There's not much available storage on these consoles. Yeah. It's not just PS5, I don't think. Like, there's not much on an S. I mean, there's barely any on an S.
It's not great.
Across the board.
I absolutely agree. It's not great.
What is it on the X again? Is it like 800 or so?
820 something.
And Emma, what is it on the S again? It's like 300
364.
Right.
Yeah, that's the real issue. But then S, obviously, you can plug in USB hard drives.
Yeah.
SSDs.
You can at least store like the next gen games on that. You can't run it off them unless you get the Seagate expansion. But yeah, no, it solves the problem of having to re-download it.
Right, but on PS5, right, it comes with 825 gig of available storage. You cannot store the games externally. That is going to fill up fast. Like if you're looking at Call of Duty, you're pushing 150 gig or whatever. It is going to fill up real quick, and it's going to become a real pain to have to re-download stuff when you want to play it. It's just, I think it's a real issue.
Sony needs to fix it soon, because it is an issue, as you say. I would be a little bit more lenient and say it's only going to be an issue for some people at the moment, but it will become an issue for everybody down the line, and pretty soon down the line when you're looking at the install sizes for things like Call of Duty Warzone. And some of the other big games coming out this year as well. I don't imagine Cyberpunk is going to be a small game. Valhalla isn't a particularly small game. So, and these games people will want to dip into. That's how you play games now. You have games that you just want to play a little bit of now and then. Destiny, for example, service games. You want to log in, do like weeklies and things. You want a number of games available on your hard drive to drop in on. And I think, pretty soon down the line, it's going to need to be addressed.
Yeah. One of the funnier, well, it's not really that funny, but I thought it sounded funny, was the PS5 doesn't have a web browser anymore. When the PS4 does have a web browser. Now, I've spoken to a few people about why this might be the case, and I'm hearing like they might have done this for security issues, various console exploits on PS4 that they, I guess, want to close up. But the obvious headline for that story, I mean, it writes itself, doesn't it? It's I think there are some websites pretty popular on console that obviously can't go on anymore.
Eurogamer.net.
Eurogamer.net. That's the headline I was looking for. Okay, well, I want to talk about the launch lineups of these two consoles because they're both out now, very soon for us, at least in the UK. And people are sitting down with these consoles and they're like, right, what am I going to play? And this is the thing that they're actually having to think about now. Whereas before, it wasn't really reality. And it was interesting you said, like people are sitting down with a £450 console and they're playing Tetris. I think that really taps into the nature of the launch lineup on the Xbox right now. But it's different on PlayStation 5. Sony has at least got some exclusives. And I know Spider-Man is also out on PS4, but that feels like a PS5 launch title, launch exclusive, and it's very good. Demon Souls, a lot of hype for that, and Sackboy, I think it. I can't remember the.
Sackboy's not till next year, or not right now, but Astro is obviously the other one.
Astro, no, I think Sackboy is now, isn't it? It's just the multiplayer was delayed, and then it was Destruction All Stars that was delayed till next year. So there are some exclusives, and they both have back compat. So my question to you guys is, I'll start with you first, Emma, is do you care about the launch lineups of these games? Is it the same as it used to be when all anyone really cared about was the launch exclusives on a console?
I mean, for me personally, I don't mind too much because I don't think there are any games in the whole set that I'm just like, I would kill to have that game. I will buy a console based on that game. It's like, oh yeah, that's nice. I like the look of that. It looks okay. I would try it out if I could. Yeah, there's nothing huge like that. And I think, yeah, the main thing I'm interested in is like Cyberpunk or like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and they're just like across both. So for me personally, it doesn't matter too much. And I think, yeah, the main draw of having like the new console, weirdly, is I've ended up using Game Pass a lot for Xbox at least. So I guess it really depends on personal preference. Like if you really want to play the new Spider-Man, obviously you're going to be excited about potentially going on to PlayStation 5, although you can still play it on PlayStation 4. I still think it drives interest, and it's like the idea of being able to play the shinier, nicer version. Yeah, I still think exclusives count. I think there is like more hype behind the PlayStation 5 lineup. A lot of people are kind of pointing at the Xbox lineup saying like, oh, well, it's just old games. But yeah, in reality, it doesn't bother me personally too much.
I mean, there are no Xbox exclusives.
Not really.
I
guess
for the launch of the Xbox, which
like
is
the
remarkable
closest we
to me.
get is like Valhalla feels almost like a timed exclusive just because of the way the launch windows are working. For consoles in the UK, because obviously PlayStation 5 isn't out for another week after like US.
But that's also on PC and on Xbox One, although God knows what it looks like on that. So yeah, but it's not a Demon Souls, is it? It's not You know, Sony at least has, you know, that to it. Tom, I've heard people say PS5 launch lineup is the best ever. Do you agree with that?
No, GameCube was the best launch lineup of any console ever.
What was that? What was in
Rogue
that?
Leader, Super Monkey Ball 1, Star Wars Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader, and Luigi's Mansion, and Wave Race, and a bunch of other things. It's a great launch lineup, right? Demon Souls, and Sackboy, and Miles, and Astrobot is really cool. Yeah. Like PlayStation are in a really strong position with their first party studios. And I think crucially, they have quite a strong 21 already lined up with.
Well, I was going to get to this. Yeah.
Horizon and other things down the line. Gran Turismo is another one off the top of my head. Yeah, so I think that they have definitely done a great job just laying that all out and being quite transparent about when these things are coming. And I'd actually criticize Xbox. I think, you know, delay games, that's fine. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. I think Halo needs the extra months, however many months that is. And absolutely right, don't rush it for the sake of the team, for the sake of the game. But I do think what you can criticize Xbox for is when it comes to the lineup, it's fine to tease, but I also think that people don't really realize how far ahead games like Everwild and Obsidian's game are. Like they are a long way away. They're not coming next year, and I don't really know what is coming next year.
Right. Well, this is
exactly
what I wanted to talk to you about, because you wrote a story this week about Sony not providing release dates, but release windows for some of the exclusives. They're not all PS5 exclusives. Horizon 2 is coming to PS4, shockingly. But Sony made console games coming out in 2021. They've said that Horizon Forbidden West is coming out in the second half of 2021. Gran Turismo 7 is coming out in the first half of 2021, I think it is. There was another one in there as well. I can't remember what it was. So they have gone and said, right, here's some exclusives for the launch. And we've got some for 2021 as well. God knows, some of those might get delayed. Horizon might get delayed. But for now, they're saying 2021, we've got exclusives as well. Microsoft not only didn't have any exclusives for the launch of the Xbox Series XS, but as far as I'm aware, Halo is the only game that they've announced as coming in 2021. Actually, now I think about it, have they even announced another? Oh no, Everwild. But I don't know if that's coming in 2021 as well.
They haven't said that it is, and I don't think it is.
No. So, you know, are we looking at Microsoft really not having a significant new game until Halo comes out? And is the Halo the only game that fits that bill for next year? Like, is that actually what we're
possibly? If Microsoft has other plans, then they certainly haven't communicated them publicly. And Halo right now does not have a launch window, which I think if they would just want to say it's coming out next year, it's fine. And it's good to know that it is coming next year. But for there to be nothing else as well, just to move the focus away from Halo, I think that's just strange. These games are coming, but they're not coming for a bit. And it's just an odd situation to be in where Xbox is launching and, you know, there's no Forza. Traditionally, you have some kind of graphical showcase for the console, and often it's a car game. There's no word on when the next Forza, which is in development, is going to come out. I presume it's next year, but they haven't said. And all of its other studios are working on things, but it just seems to be on a longer timescale.
Yeah, Emma, like, you've got an Xbox Series S. What are you gonna do with it for the next year?
Well, I guess just play the multiplayer games and everything that's just coming out on that. I don't know. It's still handy for me as like a second piece of like a second gaming platform along with my PC. It's often actually quite nice to just get away from my PC when working from home and just go downstairs and actually play on it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just gonna do current gen or older games, but better. Really.
Yeah. See, this is where I think Sony has done a better job. And Microsoft, is downplaying the significance of exclusives and, the significance of the launch. But, Sony's got some real big hitters coming out in the next 12 months. I mean, they could get delayed, but, Demon Souls is going to be massive. Spider-Man is a big deal, even though it's not a full, game. It's sort of like an expansion-y type game. But Gran Turismo 7 is going to be a huge game. And Horizon 2 is going to be enormous. Like, these are huge first-party AAA console sellers, right? So, and I just don't see Microsoft has got any answer to that any significant answer to that until like 2022. And I just like, I feel like that could be a tricky situation for them.
Yeah, I feel like it's also going to be a struggle for them to kind of try and get anything out quickly now because of COVID, and they're probably a bit worried about announcing release titles, release dates, knowing that like there's a potential for it to end up being severely delayed, and we don't know what's going to happen next year. Obviously, I think Sony was like able to prepare better in advance, and then now it's just like another hurdle for Xbox to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo, I think, has had a relatively quiet year for Nintendo-made games. I know Animal Crossing became like one of the biggest games of all time, but their big Christmas game is Hyrule Warriors, right? And that's not really it's not really doing it for me, to be honest. So,
do you know what? And just really quickly, I want to make this point about Switch because I think it relates to Xbox. That yes, it doesn't have an enormous Christmas game this year, and yes, it's weird that Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is coming out in January, and it's not going to be there in time for the holiday sales. And that feels to me like it got pushed back a bit because things just take longer at the moment. It doesn't need them. It's doing so well that they've raised their financial forecast for the year. The Switch has never sold better. And Nintendo just has coins coming out of their ears at the moment. And this does relate to Xbox in a way because at least in this early bit, I think it changes in 21 because we've just been saying I don't know what they're going to bring out next year. They haven't said, but at least in this really early part of the life cycle around launch, they're going to sell as many consoles as they can sell, as they put into the market. And in terms of like, how much money are we missing out not having something at launch? It's actually less than you think. I think the perception is there. They don't have Halo. What launch titles do they have? PlayStation has loads. But in terms of the amount of consoles that they would sell, there isn't going to be that much difference just because basically right now you're selling as much as you can put out. And Nintendo's kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, this is true. We often, kind of talk about things in terms of like PlayStation versus Xbox, but COVID, like on one hand, has been really difficult for developers, and on the other, has massively boosted sales for games and consoles, I think. So if you think about it, just, I don't know, as a product by itself, it's going to do great. Like they've sold out in a really difficult year. I think it's worth just kind of like stepping back and seeing the bigger picture sometimes.
I guess I'm thinking more about next year, right? And people have got their Xboxes and they're like, right, I've rinsed Game Pass. I played every game on the planet now for like 10 minutes, which is all you do at Game Pass, let's be honest. And I've played Gears Tactics, the only thing that comes close to being exclusive, and I've had my fill of that. What next, Microsoft? And they're like, yeah. Are you sure you've tried everything on Game Pass? What about Forza again? And Sony's going to be like Gran Turismo, Horizon 2,
God of War, maybe
God of War. I don't know. probably not, but maybe God of War. And it's just gonna. I think it's gonna. You can until Halo comes out. There might be that sort of like awkward period where the Xbox new Xbox owners are feeling like they've got not much to do.
Let's be honest. Like Valhalla and Cyberpunk and Destiny, and these are massive games. People play Warzone. People play Fortnite. I'll stick up for Xbox here, and I'll say we're not twiddling our thumbs, us Xbox owners.
No. Just don't get so bored that you start doing things with your Xbox that you shouldn't be doing. That's all I can say. All those holes are not for you. They are for the console. Tom,
does Xbox have a web browser? I don't know.
I mean, it's a PC, so I'm sure it does.
It does.
Xbox is basically a PC. There you go. That's what Microsoft will say in the boring summer when the evenings become mornings and become evenings. Just go on the web browser.
Yeah. Have you tried Edge?
Yeah. Go on Eurogamer on your Xbox. That'll keep you entertained for days. I'm going to wrap this up, but
I would.
We're coming to, like I say, the launch of both of these consoles. Are you gonna stick with Valhalla, both of you, or do you feel yourself like turning to something else? Is there anything else catching your eye? What are you looking to play next on your new consoles? Or are you just Valhalla-ing until Christmas?
Well, yeah, I think I'm just gonna Valhalla for a while and give it a little bit of time because I've really only put a few hours in. Like I'm in very early stages. I haven't even got to England yet. I want to go look at Gloucestershire, like where I'm from, and stuff like that.
Is where you're from in the game then?
Apparently, yeah, you can. Like I've seen someone tweeting that you can go look at Gloucestershire. So
oh wow,
apparently it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go have a little look. Yeah, so I'll at least play until I get to Gloucestershire. That's the answer.
Okay. Tom,
where's Croydon? Croydon is in Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Croydon is in Valhalla? I did not know that.
You sold it to him though. That's what we needed.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? What?
Yes.
Why?
It existed back in Viking times as a town like 30 miles south of central London or whatever, 10, where is Croydon? Who knows? Anyway, it's in the game. And fun fact, this is actually the second Assassin's Creed game to feature Croydon because Assassin's Creed Syndicate, set in Victorian London, opened in Croydon.
Oh my god.
Anyway, that's not what you want to hear.
I'm going to have to play this game now just to see Croydon. Does it take long to get to Croydon?
Yeah. You need to get to England, and then London's pretty, well, it's like, I'd say mid-game level.
Yeah. Maybe I'll look at it on YouTube.
It doesn't look very similar.
I wonder if it's the same as it is now.
A wasteland. I'm going to be playing more Valhalla for sure. There's still so much hidden away in that game, and it's a game which really rewards time and exploration and discovery, and it looks beautiful. So yes, I will. But then I'm going to go on to Cyberpunk.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, aren't we all? That's not until December though. Cool. All right then. Thanks very much for your time again, guys. Really good chat. Emma, if people want to hear you talk about virtual Gloucestershire on Twitter, where should they go?
At GoneEFK.
And Tom, if people want to hear you natter on about virtual Norfolk.
Always. I'm at Tom Phillips CG.
And maybe I'll talk about virtual Croydon at some point at WYP 100. All right, guys. Cheers. Bye.